Have you ever looked up into the vast, star-dusted canvas of a night sky and felt a profound sense of wonder and of smallness? Have you ever held a newborn child and marveled at the impossible perfection of life? In those silent, awe-filled moments, two questions echo in the chambers of the human heart, questions that have haunted philosophers, poets, and prophets since the dawn of time. Where did all of this come from? And why am I here? Today we journey back, not just a few centuries, not even a few millennia, but back to the very edge of time itself, to the first words ever spoken into existence. We are opening the first book of the Bible, Genesis. And this isn't just a history lesson. This is the story of the architecture of our reality. It is the story of the first light, the first love, the first heartbreak, and the first promise. It is the foundational code upon which the entire human drama is built. Forget everything you think you know and listen as if for the first time. In the beginning, before the ticking of clocks, before the swirling of galaxies, before light itself had a name, there was God. And there was a formless, empty silence, a deep, quiet darkness over the face of an endless ocean of possibility. It's a state we instinctively understand, isn't it? That feeling of chaos, of unformed potential, the void that exists before a great idea is born or a masterpiece is painted. But this void was not destined to remain. A voice, like the sound of many waters, speaks into the nothingness. Let there be light. And there was light. This wasn't just an act of power. It was an act of profound order and love. Out of chaos came clarity. Out of darkness came beauty. The first day wasn't just about a cosmic sunrise. It was a declaration that our universe is fundamentally rooted in light, not darkness. On the second day, a space is carved out in the cosmos. The sky, a great expanse separating the waters above from the waters below. A canopy of breathtaking blue, a stage for the drama that is to unfold. It speaks of structure, of boundaries, of divine architecture. On the third day, the voice commands the waters to gather, and dry ground appears. Earth, and from this new earth, a riot of life erupts. Grass, herbs, fruit trees, each with the seed of its own future, its own legacy, bursting forth in a symphony of green. Life, from its very first moment, was designed to be fruitful, to multiply, to continue. Notice the pattern here. It is a rhythm of creation, a divine poetry. Separation, formation, and then filling. The stage is set, and now it's time for the players. On the fourth day, that great expanse of sky is filled. The sun, a ruler for the day. The moon and stars, silent governors of the night. They are not just mindless balls of gas. They are set in place for signs, for seasons, for days, and for years. They're the hands on the cosmic clock, a constant reminder that our lives unfold within a framework of divine time, of purpose. On the fifth day, the waters, which were once a formless abyss, now teem with life. Great sea creatures and every winged bird, soaring in the open expanse of the heavens. And the voice blesses them, speaking the first blessing of all time. Be fruitful and multiply. The very air and seas pulse with the heartbeat of creation. On the sixth day, the land, which was once barren, is now filled. Livestock, creeping things, and beasts of the earth. The world is now vibrant, alive, a completed masterpiece. But the crescendo, the absolute pinnacle of this creative week, is yet to come. With the cosmos perfectly ordered, the earth teeming with life, God pauses. It's as if all of heaven holds its breath. And then, for the first time, God speaks not just to creation, but within the God's self. Let us make mankind in our image, after our likeness. This changes everything. You're not an afterthought. You're not a cosmic accident. In a world full of magnificent creatures, humanity is set apart. You are created in the Imago Dei, the very image of God. What does that mean? It means you were designed for relationship, for creativity, for dominion. Not a dominion of tyranny, but of stewardship. A call to care for, to cultivate, and to protect this beautiful world. Male and female, created together in that divine image, a reflection of both the unity and the beautiful diversity within God Himself. And to them, the Creator gives the greatest blessing of all, dominion, fruitfulness, and the entire world as a gift. The masterpiece is complete. God looks at everything He has made, and behold, it was not just good, it was very good. And on the seventh day, He rested. This isn't the rest of exhaustion. It is the rest of completion, of satisfaction. The Sabbath is woven into the very fabric of creation as a sacred pause, a time to cease our striving and simply enjoy the goodness of God's world and His presence. It is a weekly invitation extended across all of time to step out of the chaos and remember the perfection of the beginning. So, here's the world. Perfect. A garden, Eden is planted as the centerpiece, a place where heaven and earth meet. And in this garden, the man Adam is placed. He is given the task of naming the animals, an act not of mere labeling, but of understanding and partnership with creation. Yet amidst all this perfection, for the first time, God says something is not good. It is not good that the man should be alone. And so, from Adam himself, a helper is formed, Eve, not as an inferior, not as a servant, but as a counterpart, bone of his bone and flesh of his flesh. Here, in the garden, we see the blueprint for human relationship, perfect unity, shameless intimacy, a partnership designed to reflect the very nature of God. They are naked and they feel no shame. They are completely vulnerable, completely known, and completely loved. This is paradise. Two trees stand in the center of the garden, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. One offers eternal communion with God. The other offers a choice. And in that choice lies the story of us all. Everything is perfect, a world bathed in the unconditional love of its Creator. But into this perfect harmony, a dissonant note is played. A new voice enters the garden. It is subtle, cunning, and it speaks from the shadows. The serpent, it doesn't come with force or with threats, but with a question so small, so seemingly innocent, yet loaded with enough poison to unravel the world. It slithers up to Eve, and it asks, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" It's the oldest trick in the book. Take a clear command and twist it into an accusation. God had given them a universe of yes and one single protective no. But the serpent reframes it as the act of a restrictive tyrant. It plants the first seed of doubt, not just in God's command, but in God's very character. Eve corrects him, explaining they can eat of any tree, except for the one in the middle, lest they die. And here, the serpent makes its move, transitioning from a question to a direct contradiction, a frontal assault on the nature of truth itself. "You will not certainly die," it whispers. "For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." This is the heart of all temptation, then and now. The promise of forbidden knowledge, the allure of self-deification, the suggestion that God is holding something back from you, that His boundaries are not for your protection, but for His own. It's the lie that you can be the center of your own universe, the final arbiter of your own reality, that you can define good and evil for yourself. The woman looks at the tree. She sees that the fruit is good for food, a delight to the eyes, and desirable for gaining wisdom. Her focus shifts from the giver of all good things to the one thing that was forbidden. And in that moment of misplaced desire, she takes the fruit. She eats, and she gives some to her husband, who was with her, and he eats. There is no thunderclap, no immediate bolt of lightning, just a deafening silence. And then their eyes are opened, but they do not see divinity. They do not become gods. They see their own shame. They see their nakedness, their vulnerability, their sudden, terrifying separation from the fabric of innocence. The very first thing they do with their new wisdom is to try and cover themselves, to stitch together fig leaves, a pathetic attempt to hide their brokenness from each other and from themselves. The intimacy is gone, replaced by fear. And then they hear it, the sound of the Lord God, walking in the garden in the cool of the day. A sound that once brought them joy now brings them terror. And they do the most human thing imaginable. They hide. They hide from the source of all life. They hide from the one who sculpted them from dust and breathed into them his own breath. And a question, the most heartbreaking question in all of Scripture, echoes through the trees. It is not a question of information, for God knows where they are. It is a question of relationship. Where are you? It is the call of a heartbroken father to his lost children. Where have you gone? Why is there now a chasm between us? Adam's reply is soaked in fear. I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. The conversation that follows is a masterclass in blame shifting. Adam blames Eve. The woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit, and Eve blames the serpent. The serpent deceived me. No one takes responsibility. The perfect unity of creation has fractured into a million pieces of fear, blame, and accusation. The consequences are not the vindictive punishments of an angry deity. They're the natural, ecological results of severing the world from its source of life. The serpent is cursed, a symbol of evil that will now crawl on its belly and eat dust. The woman is told her pain in childbirth will be greatly increased, and her relationship with her husband will now be one of conflict and desire. The very act of bringing forth life will be touched by sorrow. The man is told the ground itself is now cursed because of him. The easy, joyful work of cultivating the garden will be replaced by painful toil, sweat, and thorns. Life will now be a struggle, ending not in communion, but in a return to dust. Creation is now groaning under the weight of this broken relationship. They are exiled from Eden, banished from the place where heaven and earth met. An angel with a flaming sword now guards the way back to the tree of life. It is a story of immense tragedy. The loss of innocence, the introduction of death, the fracturing of our relationship with God, with each other, and with the world around us. This is the fall, and we have been falling ever since. Every war, every act of betrayal, every piece of fake news, every moment of shame, it all finds its root in that one moment of disbelief in the garden. But that is not where the story ends. Even in this moment of judgment, woven into the very fabric of the curse, is an almost hidden, explosive promise. Speaking to the serpent, God says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. Did you catch that? In the darkest moment of humanity's young life, a prophecy is given, a promise of a future descendant, he, born of a woman, who would one day enter the fight. He would be wounded in the process, his heel would be struck, but he would deliver the fatal blow. He would crush the serpent's head. This is the first glimmer of the gospel, the first whisper of a coming rescuer. It is a declaration that evil and death will not have the final word. A promise that God's plan of redemption was already in motion, even as his children were walking out of the garden gates, clothed now in coats of skin, the first sacrifice made to cover their shame. The journey of humanity had just taken a dark and tragic turn, but it was not without hope. For a light had been promised, a serpent crusher was coming, and the rest of the story is about waiting for him. Outside the garden, the world is now a harsher place. The easy communion with God is gone, replaced by a memory and a longing. Adam and Eve have children, Cain and Abel, the first generation born into a broken world. And the seed of rebellion planted in the garden now bears its first terrible fruit. Abel, a keeper of flocks, brings the very best, the firstborn, as an offering to God. It is an act of humble, heartfelt worship. Cain, a worker of the soil, brings some of the fruits of his labor, but his heart is not in it. It is an offering of obligation, not adoration. And God, who looks not just at the gift, but at the heart of the giver, accepts Abel's offering, but not Cain's. And Cain becomes enraged. His face, which was meant to reflect the image of God, is now twisted by jealousy and anger. In a moment of incredible grace, God comes to Cain personally, warning him. Why are you angry? He asks, if you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. This is the eternal struggle, verbalized for the first time. The choice, which his parents faced before a tree, Cain now faces in his own heart. The beast of sin is at the door, and God is pleading with him, empowering him to be its master. But Cain doesn't listen. He allows the bitterness to fester. He invites his brother into a field, a place of supposed brotherhood and safety, and there, the sin that was crouching at the door leaps. The first murder. Brother's blood cries out from the very ground that was cursed by his father's sin. The image of God in man is now violently shattered by man. And again, a divine question hangs in the air, a question born of grief. Where is your brother Abel? And Cain's reply becomes the cynical anthem of a fallen world. I don't know, he lies. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes. The answer is yes. You were always meant to be. This act of violence severs the final tie. Cain is cursed, driven from a land to be a restless wanderer. He is marked, not for punishment, but for protection, a strange act of mercy in the midst of judgment. He goes on to build a city, a monument to a humanity that is now trying to make its own way, to build its own security apart from God. From here, the story accelerates into a downward spiral. The human family tree grows, but it is poisoned at the root. We read of Lamech, a descendant of Cain, who boasts of his violence, escalating murder into a song of personal pride. We see the lines of humanity, once united, now fracturing. And the narrative pulls back to give us a divine perspective, a satellite view of the human condition. And what God sees breaks his heart. The wickedness of the human race had become great on the earth, and every intention of the thoughts of their hearts was only evil all the time. The world he had created as very good was now drowning in its own corruption. The beauty was corrupted. The relationships were shattered. The violence was endless. The scripture uses a powerful, anthropomorphic phrase. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. This is a grief so profound, a sorrow so deep, that it leads to a terrifying decision, a decreation, a divine reset. The Creator decides to wash the world clean and start again. The waters from above the sky and the waters from the deep, separated on the second day of creation, would now be unleashed to reclaim the land. A flood to erase the stain of a humanity that had forgotten its maker. But even here, in this moment of coming judgment, a single word shines in the darkness. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. In a world gone mad, one man, Noah, walked faithfully with God. He was not perfect, but his heart was inclined towards his Creator. And through this one man, God would preserve a remnant of life. Noah is given a blueprint, an impossible task: build an Arkansas, a massive vessel of rescue on dry land. Can you imagine the faith this required? To chop down trees, to HEW timber, to build a ship the size of a modern aircraft carrier, all while your neighbors surely mocked you for believing in a rain that had never fallen. It was a staggering act of obedience in a world defined by rebellion. What is a moment in your own life where believing in a promise from God looked foolish to the world around you? Take a second to think about that, and feel free to share your story in the comments below. It might be the encouragement someone else needs to see today. For decades, Noah builds, and then the moment comes. The animals, in pairs, begin to arrive. A living, breathing parade of God's creation, drawn by an unseen hand to the one place of safety on earth. Noah and his family enter the ark, and God himself seals the door behind them. And then the rain begins. For 40 days and 40 nights, the heavens open and the springs of the deep burst forth. The waters rise, covering the hills, then the mountains, until all that is left is a vast, silent ocean and a single wooden vessel bobbing on the surface. A floating sanctuary, a testament to the faith of one man and the grief of a holy God. It is the world undone, a return to the watery chaos of the beginning, a baptism of the earth washing away a generation lost to evil, but preserving the seed of a new one, protected within the womb of the ark, waiting for the waters to recede and for the promise of a new beginning. For months, the ark is a solitary world, a cradle of life rocked on an endless ocean. But God does not forget. A wind is sent to blow over the earth, and the waters begin to recede. It's a reverse of creation, the land re-emerging from the deep. After 150 days, the ark comes to rest on the mountains of Ararat, a high place, a new beginning. Noah sends out a raven, then a dove. The second time, the dove returns with a freshly plucked olive leaf in its beak. It's the first sign of new life, a symbol of peace that echoes through the ages. The judgment is over. Life has returned. When they finally step out of the ark, onto the clean, damp earth, can you imagine the feeling? The scent of the wet soil, the sight of a world washed new, the silence of a planet starting over. And what is Noah's very first act? He doesn't build a shelter. He doesn't search for food. He builds an altar. He takes some of the clean animals, the ones preserved for this very purpose, and he offers a sacrifice of thanksgiving. It is an act of pure worship, an acknowledgement that their survival was not due to the strength of the wood or their own ingenuity, but solely to the grace and mercy of God. And the aroma of this heartfelt worship rises to heaven. And God responds with a promise, a covenant. He says in his heart, "Never again will I curse the ground because of humans, even though every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood. And never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done." It is a stunning admission. God recognizes that the flood washed the world, but it did not and could not wash the human heart. The root of the problem remains. And yet, despite this, he promises grace. He binds himself to his creation with a vow, and he sets a sign in the clouds to seal it. A rainbow. Think about this. An archer's war bow, in the ancient world, was a symbol of power and judgment. God takes his war bow, and he hangs it in the sky, pointing away from the earth. It is a symbol of peace, a divine promise that his ultimate posture toward humanity would not be one of judgment, but of patient, covenanted love. With this promise, humanity is given a second chance. The command given to Adam is repeated to Noah. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. But does humanity follow this new path of humility and worship? For a time, perhaps. But the old ambition, the old desire for self-glorification remains. The people journey and find a plain in the land of Shinar, and there they stop. They have a new technology, baked bricks and tar for mortar. And with this new power comes a new pride. Come, they say to one another, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. It is the sin of the garden all over again, but this time on a corporate architectural scale. It's a defiant rejection of God's command to scatter and fill the earth. It's a unified effort to build their own security, to make their own name great, to reach heaven on their own terms. The Tower of Babel is humanity's first great monument to its own pride. God looks down and sees this unified rebellion. In a strange act of mercy, he intervenes. He doesn't send a flood. He simply confuses their language, so they can no longer understand each other. The project grinds to a halt, and the very thing they feared happens. They're scattered across the face of the earth. This act prevents a unified, global descent into a pride so great it would completely self-destruct. It is a severe mercy, forcing them to obey the original command, creating the beautiful, diverse tapestry of nations and cultures we see today. But it also reveals a fundamental truth. The human project, on its own, is doomed to fail. Whether it's one man like Cain, or a whole civilization at Babel, the heart problem remains. And so, the narrative lens of Genesis, which has been on a wide angle, chronicling all of humanity, now does something dramatic. It zooms in, all the way in. It pushes past the great empires and the proud cities, and it focuses on one man in an obscure city called Ur, a man named Abram. This is the pivot point of the entire Bible. God's new plan is no longer to deal with humanity as a whole, but to call one man and to build from him a family, a people, through whom he would ultimately bless the whole world. He comes to Abram with a call and a promise. Go, God says, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. And then comes the promise, a sevenfold covenant that will drive the rest of the biblical story. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. And Abram, in an act of faith that echoes Noah's, simply goes. He leaves everything he has ever known, not knowing his final destination, but trusting the one who called him. And this is where the book of beginnings leaves us. It has shown us a world created in perfection and love. It has revealed the tragic story of our fall, the catastrophic consequences of our rebellion, and the stubborn pride that persists in our hearts. It has shown us judgment in the flood, but also the relentless, preserving grace of God, sealed with the promise of a rainbow. And now, it has pointed us toward the solution. The hope of the world will not be in a tower, but in a tent. The story will not be about humanity reaching up to God, but about God reaching down to one family to begin the long, slow, and beautiful work of redemption. Genesis starts with God and all humanity in a garden, and it ends with God and one family on a journey to a promised land, carrying a promise that would one day save us all. It is the beginning of a story that finds its ultimate answer, its final fulfillment, in that promised offspring who would finally come to crush the serpent's head. If you have been inspired by this journey through the book of beginnings, then this is just the start. The story only gets more intense from here. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because in our next video, we will follow the incredible journey of Abraham, a story of impossible promises, deep faith, and terrible tests. Join us as we continue to explore the greatest story ever told.